Okay, so welcome to the Bring It Coaching podcast. This is episode 8, and I'm joined here, none other than Toby. How you doing, Toby?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me on.
Brilliant stuff, mate. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for joining us on the podcast. So I know Toby from actually hit you up. I actually met you at a gym in local to myself.
Yeah.
By chance, really, wasn't it? So
Yeah.
I think I just went down to a local gym that I know of, and you happened to be a trainer there. And then I think we got chatting, and actually went to one of your events, which what we'll cover on later on in the show. So yeah, it was a bit out of a coincidence, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So
yeah, definitely.
Go on.
Yeah. So obviously I was at Riggs then, which is obviously near Moseley. And yeah, just personal training there. But yeah, I was just sort of stumbled upon it, and then I was personal training there for a while, which was sort of gym local to you.
Brilliant stuff, man. Good stuff. So before we do go in and really kick off the podcast, Toby, how I like to take this, how I like to start it is just by asking the guests a fun fact about yourself, an interesting fact that maybe only some people might know, some others might not. So if you don't mind just sharing, I know I'm putting you on the spot there.
That's right.
If you don't mind sharing,
I'm half German, so I speak German. So not everyone knows. It should be much better because from my mum's side. But yeah, I spent a year in Germany as well, during university as a placement in Munich as an accountant of all things, and then I quickly realised that I was not my path that I want to follow. So that's why I've been since then, after I graduated from Bath University, that I went into full-time sort of fitness and football coaching and that sort of direction, basically.
Brilliant stuff. And so obviously, Toby, you are, you're like you said, you're a trainer, you're a full-time fitness coach, and you do specialize in certain aspects of that, which is what we'll cover on, is more towards the calisthenics field. Yeah. But before that, let's rewind back to, your history. How did you get into sports? Did you pick it up from a young age? Was you always involved in it? Was you always active when you was younger? Talk to me about your childhood and did it start from there?
Yeah, I would say I've always been looking to like join sort of sports and stuff like that. Even from an early age, I was begging my dad, as he wasn't really pushing me into sports. He played himself when he was younger at school, but it was more, when I was younger, I was actually asking him, "God, can I join this football team? Can I do this?" And I don't know if he was holding me back a little bit, because I felt like I've always had a drive, just like wanting to like try and be good at, whether that's football, rugby, tennis, all those things. So I've always done that from an early age, and then I did that all through primary, secondary school, and then it's probably around sort of 16. Obviously, just I was definitely mainly the school was at Adams Grammar School, and they're definitely more rugby school. So obviously you've got quite a lot of big guys, and obviously to get a bit more competitive when you're getting around those ages, you obviously want to build on a bit of size. So then obviously there's a big community about there, just going to the gym and doing bits. I would probably I think I started off with just some dumbbells and just curling, thinking I could just curl my way all the way through, and that's all I needed to do. That was kind of fun. But yeah, I saw the progression from each week. You could put the weight on, and I just, like that every day, or not every day, but like every week you can feel like you're improving, and then that sort of got the bug from there. I had a year out in Australia after school, and I just kept from there. I found it quite difficult to get, even though Australia is massive sports. I did try and play a bit of football or rugby. I felt like because I was quite good, I like to play all sports. I never really focused on one. Whereas in the background, even though that was my priority, the background, I was still just training and just saying, well, if I keep strong, keep fit, that will help my sport. So it was in terms of the gym side of things, it was definitely always in the background. And I always had football, rugby, or another sport as my main thing, and that was just to supplement that. Then once I got back, when I got back to England, started university at Bath. There I played for the football men's team, sort of second team there, and I had a big injury there with my back, and then I had to start, even out of gym. That took me a long time to rest a little bit. And it was the third year, so I did a 4-year course with a sandwich placement year, talking about the fact from earlier that when I was in Germany, there's like quite a big calisthenics scene. And so I didn't actually join, I didn't have a gym membership that year. And I just went every day. I went, not every day, but obviously most throughout the year, I was just go to a park and just do pull-ups, dips, just the basics, and just learning all through those things. One, because it was cost effective at the time as well, because I was on not great money at the time, and but also just because I thought at that time I was like, I'd done a lot of gym work as supplements for the sports training, but it was nice to just work on your own body weight and just make sure you control yourself and all that stuff. So that was quite interesting. And then from there, after I built the basics a bit, I tried to do sort of different skills, and that's where I really started my calisthenics sort of journey. Whereas learnt my first muscle up, working on the front lever, back lever. So these are common skills in calisthenics. That you sort of start off with. They're very difficult, but it's just something like you try and do after you've mastered the basics. They're sort of the next things to try and do. And then once I graduated, like I said, I did that time I was working. I did basically a management degree, so that was sort of the focus there. But then I realised after that I want to focus on sport, and then I qualified as full-time personal trainer. And then since then, I've just been still practicing calisthenics in the background, and then so that basically brings us kind of, and in the last sort of 3-4 years since I've graduated, I've just been building on those, and then we'll probably get into, rather than me rambling, but probably get into the competition side and how we got into that in the last couple of years.
Brilliant, good stuff. I just want to go back to something that you said there that stuck out to me. You said you always had like a drive to try different sports and try your efforts at different things. Where do you think that came from, that drive to, that sort of passion to go out there and try things? Because if I think about my own history, I was sort of similar growing up in terms of like being active and always wanted to play. I was similar like yourself, wanted to try different sports. I never really stuck at one sport. Football for me was sort of like my main sport, but never really did stick at one to where I did excel, exceptionally. So what gave you that drive to just try a few different things?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's not something I've actually ever considered. Like I said, like I said, from my parents, all very supportive parents. I'm very lucky to have a very good upbringing. But I never really my dad or my mum, they're not very sporty people. And like I said, my dad played sports, but he definitely wasn't like as let's say obsessed as I am, because I have to be doing something for my fitness and all through that. So it's a great question, and I can't really explain it other than that's just how I feel, and that's what I want to do. I've always wanted to be active, and I want to be doing that. And it's not just that I follow every kind of sports. I don't just follow football. I know if you ask me who's like the top 10 of the tennis, I'll name not every single one, but I know most of the scene there. Basketball, NBA, NFL. Like, I love to just seeing every different side of sport. Also going a bit of a tangent of your question, but it's just I've always been following. I've always embraced around. I just like to keep myself around through, and I don't know. It's just something. Obviously, I just started off with, and I've just never really questioned. That's what I enjoy doing. So I guess the drive is just why, if I enjoy it, why don't you just keep doing it and try and go through different sports? But similar to what you mentioned there is that football I was okay. But I definitely was never, I could have definitely trained hard. I think that's the element that, because I wasn't sticking to one. I think to be a specialist in a certain thing, you need to stick to one and just go through it. Even though I was obsessed with learning different things, I think, like I said, I was just a jack of all trades, master of none. So I was quite good at most stuff, but never to a level where, because I would have loved, obviously, well, there's still time, but I would love to have gone professional on something, but I just never found anything that was just that elite level, or you need some hard work will get you a lot of places. But I think there's good interviews with a lot of the top sportsmen all over the world, and they say you need to have some talent. So hard work will beat talent in some cases, but you have zero talent, unfortunately, hard work won't do that. I know that sounds a bit pessimistic, but that's when they go through. Now, if you have a bit of talent and you put the hard work with it, then you can get to those levels. And you can see that Ronaldo, I'd say, is not the most talented footballer out there, Cristiano I'm talking about, but his work ethic has made him to that elite level position through there. So that's where they can combine together.
Brilliant stuff, man. Yeah, absolutely. Would you say like obviously knowing different elements of these sort of sports, was there like a standout role model for you in any of these particular sports, or was it just coming from just having that that knack and that interest for it?
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's someone I particularly followed. I mean, like a bit like you, that football was, I would say, if I had to pick one of like which sport I played the most and followed the most, is definitely football. Like most young males in the country. And my dad support Liverpool, so then at the time I support Liverpool, Steven Gerrard, so you've got all those things. But I wouldn't say I was like, trying to find, trying to find exactly what Steven Gerrard's doing through there. But obviously, I followed him through there, so I'd say that's probably the only one. But really, I just, like I said, the drive just came within really, and just for me trying to become better at it
Nice.
as I went on.
Brilliant stuff, mate. Good. So then you also mentioned about you went to university, which was predominantly playing rugby. Was it more of a rugby, or was that school?
That was
Sorry.
at school, and then
Cool.
so
Yeah.
school was mainly rugby. I actually petitioned; they didn't play football, and then eventually, I played football outside for like a local club. But
Mm.
I played mostly rugby at secondary school, and then right towards the end, we managed to finally get our school to convince them to do a football, and then I did football for like the last year.
Nice.
But then and then at uni, I was doing more football than rugby.
Good stuff. So then, because then you also mentioned like you go to school and then you see a lot of big lads around you who
Yeah,
probably are built for that sort of sport, and
yeah.
maybe not coming from that background yourself. What was it like to be amongst some like bigger guys, and was you sort of like put off from it, or did
Yeah,
you
for
tend to
sure, and
enjoy it?
that's probably sorry to I didn't interrupt. But that's exactly what it was, and that's why I probably went off rugby for that time, because obviously during your 13, 14, obviously people starting to hit puberty around those ages, but
Mm.
I could sort of get away, and then I was very. I mean, there's a lot of like you don't have to be big to tackle people, but it's just that intimidating thing of having someone really big, because all it takes is obviously you swipe the legs. And obviously now I know, but I think I was very intimidated, and I used to hate tackling. So I used to love attacking. So I was fullback winger. I've always had a bit of pace around me, so I love doing that. But when it came to defending on the last line, that's where I would shy away, and just there's an element of technique, but I think I just had no belief. Whereas
Mm.
now I'd love to like talk to myself now, as I've obviously put on a bit more size, and just say, even though it's not about the size, but it is obviously a bit of the confidence and everything, that it would be interesting if I stuck a bit more at rugby. Maybe I would have been better, because I think also I went to football, but I think maybe I was maybe a bit more gifted at rugby, and especially in terms of attacking. But I would never have got anywhere because I couldn't tackle. Well, I say I couldn't tackle. I wouldn't want to tackle. So that's
Mhm.
you can't have a can't have a player who only does one side. Should be more American football, where they have offense, defense, and then you can have one side and not worry
Sure.
about defending.
No, no, I like that. I love that, to be fair. So you just mentioned there, if you were to talk to yourself, the younger you back then, like what advice would you give to yourself? Because belief it's a massive thing, isn't it? And like you said, it's not just about having the strength of size. If you haven't got the belief up here,
Yeah.
then you are going to fall short. Then, so what would you say to your younger self? And let's just say, kids that are going through that experience right now, what sort of message would you like to put out to them that maybe don't have the belief, that have got the physical capability or potential to, fulfill that, but just don't have that belief element of it? What would you say, and what sort of things would you advise in implementing for them to, overcome that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. What I'd probably say is obviously, yeah, you have to really focus, and you have to first and foremost you have to obviously question, say, do I want to play the sport and go through? Like obviously I can say that now, but maybe at the time if I talked to my younger self, sometimes you forget how I was like, I'm so adamant I don't want to play this sport anymore, and it
Mm.
didn't matter who was there to convince you. So first and foremost, do I love the sport? Do I want to keep going to sport? If it goes, yeah, and then you say, then it's a belief thing. Then you come onto the mental side of thing and say, look, you can work. You definitely, it's not to not work in the gym. You can work in the gym the side, but there's a lot of good technique, and then it's just about practicing. The more you practice, the better you get. So if you get in, when people are doing that practice, take another couple of days, get some pads or get a friend and just focus on him running at you, get someone bigger than you, and just build and build, and repetition makes perfect. Or ask the coaches. Is always using, all school coaches are all very useful, but I think you take it for granted sometimes there. So if you've got any coaches, ask them, what can I do to get better? What should I focus on? Or even, I'm a bit, most coaches are pretty nice these days. Obviously the old school when they're like, just shouting and stuff. But I think today there's a bit more sensitive. So you can say, look, I'm a bit intimidated by them. And they say, look, I'll get it. And they can give you some drills to go through. So getting advice from as many people around you within your circle, either your friends, your coaches, and just to build that belief up. And then it's just about practicing. And then at the same time, it's not essential, but obviously, keep building your muscle, keep building, make sure you're getting your food and nutrition right. And then those two, obviously, build your belief, build your strength. And those two, obviously, are just going to help each other as you go through that time. So that's, I think that's the sort of steps I would like to sort of ask. First, make sure you definitely want to do it. Second is the belief. And then the third one is build the strength up at the same time. And then everything should come together.
Nice, good. Brilliant stuff. So then talk to me then, you went from school, university, you played more football there. So did you study, you mentioned you studied accounting. Is that what you did in university then, or was that?
Yeah, I wasn't studying accounting, but it's all the set for me. It merges all. It's like business management. It's all those things, and you can go off to accounting, you can go off to different things, but it's definitely that sort of business that sort of route. That's what I was doing mostly there, and that's obviously I applied to that because I was thinking that's what I felt my career would go in at that stage, and sport was always the background, but I'd never really. Again, you could come back to the belief thing. Maybe I never thought I could have a career in fitness and sport unless it was through like being a professional athlete, rather than like going through different things. But I guess it's very difficult it's always very just like anyone when you're 17, 18 or 19, sometimes you're deciding what you want to do. And obviously, again, in hindsight, I probably would have picked a more sports degree through that, and then maybe got a few more opportunities for different things, maybe gone more strength conditioning or something like that, or sports science, and all those things. But yeah, equally, you need those years to sort of learn more about yourself. And obviously at the time, the sports was always background. And then I had the sort of realization afterwards, especially after the year being, because there's a university and then there's actually doing the job and being practical. And I really enjoyed university. It's definitely don't regret it. But when you're actually in the job and you can, you always start at the bottom at these sort of companies. If you go, because I was in a big company, you always start at the bottom and work your way up. So it should get better as you go. But I could see at the different levels where I'd be, and I just went, yeah, that's not for me. Especially just, there's different jobs that don't have to be like that, but the sort of office 9 to 5, sitting down in a chair, it's such a cliche, so not for me and all those things. But yeah, I'd rather be active and then there's the element of just saying you're just a small cog in the machine, whereas now even if it's much more difficult and sometimes much more stressful, there's a lot of other things to do it. But being your own boss and managing your own time and doing that is just definitely something that suits my lifestyle. And it's not to say that 9 to 5 works for a lot of people, and it works really well for them. So, but just for me, it was good that the university and that, especially that placement, taught me that wasn't for me.
No, that's a common thing, and that's something I can relate to going through university. Even though I studied sports, we did have elements of practical and working with some of the teams and the athletes, but it's nothing like the real world. It's nothing like, as soon as you step out there, you're sort of left to your own devices. It's sort of game on, isn't it? So I can definitely relate to that. Do you think there needs to be some more form of like practical or like real world life elements to university? Do you think is there something that you would have changed about that experience to university? Would you have introduced more of like practical experience on the course that you did, or just in general at university level?
Yeah, I think I don't want to take this podcast in the wrong direction, because we could go about the education system, about all that stuff, but I'll try and keep it short and snappy. I definitely think there's a lack of, when you go right through every level, there's a lack of practical experience, whether in every level of school or education. Maybe they get it right maybe at sort of nursery, where people are interacting and learning with each other, like talking to each other, and that's how important the communication and, you know, the understanding that your words have a meaning and stuff, because that's, you know, kids have no, you know, there's an age where you go, oh, I shouldn't actually say that, because that's when you're thinking about that, and that's where it's quite good. But anyway, going back to the trying to keep it a bit short, is that, yeah, there should be a lot more practical things. Like, you learn so much different stuff at school, but then it's really saying, like, you never learn about, like, maybe even doing your taxes or something. Like in maths, like, you do something a bit more relevant to the actual practical, like the maths stuff. I was quite good at maths and did all those things, and there's some equations that could be useful depending on which degree you do, but it'd be nice that ever so often you would have a practical one where you go, this is, but kids might not listen anyway, but it's still that you go through that that stage. And that's why I think any university degree that offers like-minded that 1 year placement is just vital, and just because then you sort of experience through, and then to wrap it up, it's like the thing is, obviously, if I was an employer, obviously, from these companies, if I had someone who's gone through 4 years experience of that job, or 4 years of university just studying, I'm going to take the guy who's got 4 years experience, just because he's been there. I don't have to train him as much. Yeah, he might not have all the, obviously it does depend on what degree and stuff, so it's a bit, yeah, I'm summing up a little bit, but that's the thing. But then on the other hand, I get the advantage of university, because at 18, some people can go straight into work, but some people are not mature enough and ready. So sometimes you need to mature for those 4 years. So if you put them straight in work at 18, you have some issues with that. Anyway, I'm starting to go off already. But,
no. It's interesting to hear, because, like I said, I've been through the schooling system, the education system, and, you know, there are flaws there in my experience. I wish there had been a lot more hands-on experience all the way through, not just, you know, certain parts of the degree and at different levels, but definitely something I can agree with you there. Okay, cool. So you left university. Tell me about that period when you left. Like, you're fresh out of university. Where are you now? Like, where are you in your career? Like, what's the choices ahead of you? Do you have things where you're directly going to go into, or does it sort of change and shift?
Yeah, so like I said, after that third year, so 4 years after that third year, I was pretty adamant after that, I'm going either into football coaching, which I was doing my badges at the time, and I'm going into sort of fitness, because by that time, like, I'd sort of, calisthenics definitely was a big part of my life, and I was like, yeah, going into sort of some sort of personal training or fitness training and stuff like that. So then, so the whole fourth year, I was continue doing my badges, just working my work through the football coaching. So I'd already had laid the development of that. I didn't apply to any sort of other accounting things. So I'd already made that transition in that final year. I still obviously had to, final year is obviously a lot of hard work, so I still had to do a lot of that. But when I graduated, I was fortunate enough to take a bit of time off, and just go on a bit of a holiday to clear the head after, like, the hard sort of graft from the finishing university. And then from there, I did the PT qualification. I mean, you can get into that, which is a pile of rubbish anyway, but, like, you know, that's what they need most people to do if you want to get a job somewhere. So then did that, and then I was trying to apply for my UEFA license, which is like the sort of big one. And yeah, it was just I'll finish that, because I've finished the football coaching. Well, the idea of that now, just because the UEFA, the first year they said because you need child safeguarding, and they said it was out of date when I renewed it already, and so I got rejected. Then it's because you have to do it for a whole season. So level 1, level 2 is quite easy to do and get on. UEFA B is a little bit harder, and there's a lot more applications. Anyway, so I got rejected that first year. Then I tried the second year, and they lost my application somehow. And then the third year was COVID. So then by that time I was just like, yeah, and I was moving. So I'm from Shrewsbury, and I'd moved to Birmingham in the middle of that transition, and I was still coaching in Shrewsbury, so I was commuting to volunteer coaching, so obviously not getting paid, so then having to commute all that way. And then COVID came, and I just said, look, I am interested, and I do like the football side of it, and I do like the football coaching of it, but I just said, there's something either telling me, I don't believe in that fate and all that stuff, but just like, I've tried 3 years in a row, I'm sacrificing a lot. And then sometimes when you are trying to teach kids I was doing under 14s, under 15s, and they're, sometimes not in a good mood, and it's raining like it is like now or whatever, and you're just saying, yeah, I'm not sure. You sort of question a bit, and I just said, yeah, I can see myself doing this, but I just said at the moment it's just not working. So then that's that aside, and then obviously equally at the same time, basically what I was more interested, I gave myself, I said 2 years post university. I said, if I can make a living out of football coaching or personal training in 2 years' time, then I will just keep going with it. If I haven't, my aim was just to use my degree to go back into accounting and stuff like that. So it's just I set myself a 2-year goal to say, is it achievable? Can I do it? Also, am I happy with it? Because sometimes you make your hobby your job. And so you hear some people saying, oh, now I hate that, or I hate being around it and all that stuff. Anyway, so obviously the football coaching didn't go to plan, but by that time, with the personal training, I was doing some I was working in some schools and doing working with some netball teams. So there's a bit of overlap, and doing some strength conditioning sessions. And then I moved to Birmingham sort of a year after graduation. And then, from there I was, I found, to get myself started, I was like a licensee for a brand, and they was doing more home personal training. So I'd go to people's houses, and they would give me leads. So it's a bit easier, because the hardest thing, as you probably know, is bringing in the leads, especially when you don't know an area. So that was quite useful to start, and I also got a lot of good, because obviously they'd been around a while. They gave me a lot of good business sort of tips about how to go through. So I was with them for about a year. I think that was also up until COVID, and then COVID hit. Obviously, the leads dried out because just that time. Obviously, I did move on to a lot of online stuff through there. But then that's where, around COVID time, then I went to Riggs, and that's where we met when you came in one day. And then I started personal training there. And then now I've moved from Riggs, as that's changed business model now, to the Morris Centre, which is near the hospital. Okay. And that's where I base most of my training in terms of the personal training side of things. So that's how that developed. But definitely that, in terms of how I got, is I think having that, being that franchise or licensee under that brand did give me a lot of, because sometimes you don't know where to start as a fitness trainer in the industry. So obviously you pay them a certain fee as well. So it's a bit like rent. So obviously you pay rent to gyms. It's a bit like you pay them. But that was quite useful to get yourself going. And now I feel like I've got a good understanding of where everything is.
No, that's interesting, because it sounds like you you're faced with a lot of adversity there. Obviously, having your sights set on the coaching, and I've also done a level 2 football coaching Ep.8 course, so I'm quite familiar with that. And I know how hard it is to go for the UEFA. But to then have them lose your application and also reject that's quite it's quite a shame. But then again, look what's turned out of it, because on the flip side, you got yourself to do the personal training thing. So did you always have a passion for helping other people? Then obviously you're coaching children, kids. Was that passion always there then, for helping other people? And why do you feel like you sort of cemented in that?
Good question. I don't know if I wouldn't say that I've ever thought where it sort of just naturally happened, where I felt like I've been helping as I go through. I always think I'm quite empathetic, and I always try, and obviously if people need advice, I'm always giving people advice through there. So that's just naturally my personality. I'm not one of these people, if I can do something, so how do you do, I'm not gonna be like, no, that's my secret. I'm always open to sharing. And not many people are like that, but I guess that's the only thing. And then in terms of I guess I just, at the moment, the original source working a lot with kids was just having a few opportunities, the coaching side of things, and then you're helping people, and then you're seeing people improve, and it's the same satisfaction of I see myself improve. That if I can help someone else improve, that also gives me the same enjoyment. And so when I guess I sort of, a bit like how I got the bug very early on for sports, when I got the bug of sort of seeing how when I help people improve, then I said, okay, this is something that I'd want to do. And that's why with the coaching and the personal training, you can sort of see that. And it can be equally frustrating when something doesn't go to plan, but then that's sort of the drive and desire to say, okay, why isn't that the case? can we readjust? Can we make it work from there?
Brilliant stuff, mate. I absolutely love that. So you're fresh. The football thing doesn't work out. On top of that, COVID soon comes along, and it's not probably not, well, depending how you look at it. I mean, I've been a trainer for quite a while now, and obviously I've had my studio now for 5 years, and COVID hit us. But at the back of that, or prior to that, we did still have a membership base, and so I knew that at some point, if we were to open, there will be people who would come back. But I can't imagine if you're just starting out during that period of COVID, where do you turn to? And you mentioned there's like you invested into some company that helped you gather leads. So do you think that sort of paid off for you? Would you advise for new and up and coming trainers to go down that route?
Yeah, I think if you don't know an area, like I said, I think it's very difficult to sort of try and get in, and I think that's also the thing with personal trainers. It's as much as you obviously I said earlier that you got the freedom to choose when you want or whatever. Obviously, you're still dictated a little bit by your clients that will go through. So whereas some people can just apply for a different job in a new area, if you try to set up a whole new client base in a different area, that's very difficult. So that's where I found that instead of going to maybe a traditional or one of the sort of big chain gyms and paying this rent and trying to like advertise myself on the floor, that I do one, it was actually more cost effective than the rent that they were saying, or you have to do so many classes and all this stuff, and you still had a bit of freedom, and you had the advice of people, like you had a weekly call with them and they could give you bits of advice. So I'm definitely a person who does a lot of research, coming from my background and stuff. Even when I did the PT thing, even though I was trying to find the one that was best value, but not the cheapest one either. So you just want the best of both worlds. And that's when I did all my research and said, I think the best thing is something like this. So I would, unless you already know someone, or you know someone who's got a good studio like you, something like yours, and through there. But I think it was for me, who I knew no one in that sort of area in fitness, then it was best for me just to do that. And I think that was a great sort of stepping stone. I think there's a time where you don't want to rely on them too much if you want to be your own business. Some people have been with those guys for 5+ years, but I think for me that first year or so was quite good, and it just build the base for my business. In the meantime, I could ask them loads of questions through there. But yeah, on the point of the COVID, obviously, then I sort of stopped with them just because obviously no one's getting too many leads. But then, like I said, the Rigs thing fell in. I was actually training at Rigs myself, and then I had the opportunity to start running classes there. And then there's a few leads that came through that. So I felt like it was a good time to sort of transition.
Nice. So talk to me more about your obviously at this point now, so you're doing the personal training. Are you just focusing more on just like generic, like sort of members of public looking for weight loss? Did you specialize in any particular area at that point? What was your calisthenic journey at that point when you started off training?
So I was still post-university, still training a lot of calisthenics myself, and then especially Rigs is one of the reasons I chose it, because I had a good calisthenics sort of area to do it. And then in my leads, obviously I was getting, I'd say 50% general population, just going through things, but I'd always, I'll make sure you're getting the client's goals, but sometimes I would sort of recommend them whether they'd be interested in the calisthenics side. So making sure it still fits their goals, but they'd be happy to do that. And most people enjoyed it. Obviously, just there's a lot of calisthenics exercises done by most people anyway, which there's general push-ups, dips, pull-ups, and all those things. So I was still training myself, 50/50s, pure calisthenics base. I still do a bit of online coaching, just purely online, doing programming and stuff. But yeah, that's sort of where that was.
Nice. And for those that don't know what calisthenics is, are you able to sum that up for us? Just for
I would say it's fairly. Obviously, there may be lots of different descriptions, but I would just say it's any body weight workout. So you can, like I said, the simple, like just doing a squat but without weight, is sort of the calisthenics thing. So a deadlift wouldn't be calisthenics because you can't do that with your own body weight. So you'd have to have something to pick up through there. So that's why a squat is calisthenics. And then obviously there's lots of different variations. There's pistol squats, shrimp squats, which yeah, they're different. There's different, there are harder variations of that, and then you've got obviously a dip where you dip your own body weight, pull up, sorry, chin up or pull up, either one of those. Obviously, then you get advanced ones, muscle up, where you're going over the bar. Obviously, a push up is calisthenics, so it's pretty much anywhere where you're using your own weight to be resistance through there.
Nice, nice. And where did you get? Where did you sort of see that first, and where did you, you know, take an eye for that then? Because from what my understanding of calisthenics, you see a lot of it more in the US, like from watching YouTube videos online. You see like all these, you know, jacked up guys, ripped guys, and a lot of those videos are coming out from the US and not so much from the UK. So did you have some influence from the US, like watching stuff online, or did you at any point, you know, go out there yourself, or what was the story behind
Yeah.
that?
I don't know exactly what it was, but maybe as sort of social media was sort of building in those days, that maybe I might have seen a clip with someone doing either a muscle up or maybe some sort of skill, and obviously the sort of normal reactions. Oh, that looks really cool. I'd like to do that. And then you can, at the time, I think you know, well, but still now, already YouTube was a great sort of source where you'd go through, and that's where there's a lot of good American things, but there was also, if you type in the calisthenics scene, there's a lot of good German people. There's a good German YouTube ones, and then actually there's an Australian guy as well, FAQs, and yeah, and there's different people through there who basically use just go over most of the calisthenic stuff, and that's where I learnt most of the original things. And then, like I said, when I really properly went into it was my year in Germany, where there's a lot more parks in Germany. Definitely ahead of us in sort of calisthenics and that side of things. And that's where I'd meet up with other people doing it, and then there's nothing better. Also, YouTube videos are good, but it's nothing better to be, and just for the community, in person, and then asking people. And there were some sort of free classes there sometimes, and where they'd just show you a few different things of what to do. And so that's where that really kicked on.
So when you was out in Germany, you'd literally go to parks and there were classes being held in parks and stuff. Is that how it worked?
Yeah. So I would say it wasn't. I think there's probably sometimes every week during the summer, and also in the winter, I pretty much was the only one out there. Sometimes the bars would be like halfway full of snow, and I'd still be going, and then just doing pull-ups with my knees bent so I wouldn't get wet during them. But like you can just see my footprints just going one to the bar and back. But then so like at that time. Yeah, you need obviously gloves. It's sometimes like -10 degrees in Munich, but you get warm. It's surprisingly how warm you get after like having things. So I'll be in a t-shirt in -10 degrees because after like doing a few pull-ups, you get warm quite easily.
Wow, fair enough. So obviously, then you're training out at the moment. You've decided now to dive more into the calisthenics scene. Talk to me about what you've got going on then behind the scenes of like, how have you been able to then branch out of it? Like, that's your main interest now. What's going on in the scene? What are you doing with it?
So basically, I also the big development as well. Actually, start of COVID, I took because I was actually getting a little bit frustrated with some of the things. I took on a coach just to help me with a few things, and that was an online coach. Actually, I was thinking about skills, but then he actually is the first person who introduced me to weighted calisthenics, which is basically what would come down to our competitions. And so then that's and I had seen some of those competitions in Germany and other places, and it did interest me a little bit. So that's when I started working with this coach. I was starting to do a lot more of those, and I managed to still, even with COVID, it was very difficult, but I still managed to have a sort of setup at home where I kept doing that. And then, I worked about 6 months with that coach and then kept that going. I learned a lot of good stuff through there, and that's why coaches, even though obviously you're still a personal trainer, it's always useful to have coaches teach you different things about different aspects. So that's always very useful. And then fast forward a year, there was a competition coming up in the UK, and by this time, so I'll roll back a bit. It's basically there's big weighted calisthenics competitions, and weighted calisthenics is basically a powerlifting version of calisthenics. So you've got a 1 rep max, just like in powerlifting. You have 3 attempts. In powerlifting, it's squat, bench, and deadlift. And in calisthenics, it's a muscle up, pull up, dip, and a squat. So the squat overlaps because, like you said, squat is still a calisthenics movement, because you can put the barbell on top. So it's basically just adding weight to all of those ones. There's a lot of competitions where there's like endless reps, so you can how many pull-ups you can do, and some guys are insane, they 50 pull-ups or crazy in different sets. Whereas I felt like the that's more about endurance, whereas it's about the strength. And I've always definitely been a bit more, like I said, sprinting, and I'm not an endurance guy, so I'm always looking for the quick strength things. And I'd never really looked at powerlifting at all by that point. But basically, it's big in Spain, France, Germany, and I was looking for a competition in England, and there wasn't one. And then there was one at the Arnold's Festival, and it was weighted calisthenics, but it was still several reps of it. So they'd still do 32 kilogram pull-ups, which is obviously still a decent amount of weight, but you still had to do several reps of it and all this stuff. So definitely wasn't catered towards my kind of training at the time. And so I did that, and then that's where I started to branch out to know more people, and there's a bigger calisthenics scene. And I basically, from there is when I started to plan the first national competition in the UK, in Birmingham. And that's where I just had to organize everything from scratch. I'd never run a competition, never knew anything, pretty much knew nobody other than going to this one event in Arnold's, and just had to try and build everything to come together. And somehow it sort of did. There's definitely a lot of mistakes and a lot of flaws to it, and different things that you got to learn from. It was definitely cost much more, way more stress and all this stuff. But that was in March this year. But it went to plan. I got some of the biggest guys. The main thing I managed to attract some of the strongest guys, because it is meant to be the nationals, even if it's the first one. But like, it was trying to get like a big scene there. So I was really happy how it turned out. And basically, now I've set up 4 regionals in Edinburgh, Manchester, Cornwall, and Basingstoke. And so now these 4 regionals are idea to build the popularity and get more people into it. So then for next year's nationals, just like most things, that they will see a bigger standard, be more well known, and all the stuff. So in these regionals, the idea is to give people an opportunity to qualify automatically if they get a certain total through there. And sorry, how it works, obviously you have 3 attempts at each of these categories, the muscle up, and it's your whole total score. And there's different weight categories, just like in powerlifting, because obviously someone who's 60 kilograms is going to do a lot different to someone who's 100 kilograms. Obviously in the squat, it's obviously someone with 100 kilograms is going to squat a lot more compared to someone with 60. So that's reference. And then maybe actually in the pull-up, the person who pull-ups might pull up a lot more than a heavier guy, because obviously the heavier guy's got a lot more weight to him as well.
Wow, interesting. So it's combined. It's combining the calisthenics with the powerlifting.
Yeah.
For one rep maxes. So this one event, is that the one I went to in March? Is that
so that's the one. That was the first ever one, and that was the nationals. That's the one you very kind of came to and supported. So then the idea is obviously next year that will be there'll be another nationals, and that's what it wants to be: nationals, regionals, as it flows through there. And I'm trying to sort of leave the summer free for like this, because there's a lot of different calisthenics competitions. Obviously, once you're in the scene, you can see how many different ones. There's freestyle, skills, and different things, and still endurance stuff. And my idea is to try and leave the summer free for those, because that's when people get out to the parks. Because the only thing about the weighted calisthenics is you can do it in the parks, but obviously you need a lot of weight. So that's why I try and like plan it in those sort of winter months, so then people can then sort of enjoy what the beauty of calisthenics is, that you can just go to a park and have a good workout, and you don't need a membership, which I think is the basis of it.
Yeah. So just leading on from that, what you're saying, like, how can people get started? So I have seen that if you travel around Birmingham parks stuff, they have in the last few years added some equipment, to their parks. For example, just up the road from our gym in Shirley, there's an area, there's like a gym area. They've got some body weight machines, which are quite interesting, but they also have some bars there and stuff. So is it literally just people just going down and just trying out putting their own weight around and throwing their own weight around on these apparatuses out in the parks? Then what's your best advice to people getting started?
Getting started definitely is it's building your basics. Whether even if you wanted to go into any part of calisthenics, the basics are your pull-ups, your push-ups, dips, and just bodyweight squats. Obviously, you can do jumping squats and all that stuff to make it a little bit more intense. But that is your basics. Is not to, and there's an element, I've done this, everyone's done this. When you see this skill, you go, oh, you see someone doing 50 kilograms, you go straight to weighted. But there's an element of, you do want to just get the basics done, spend good number of months just perfecting your form, those sort of, because again, it's all strict form, making sure we're fully locking out, not doing half rep pull-ups or half rep push-ups and all that stuff. So get the form down, get the basics done, and then from there you can then build, and you go, oh, I like freestyle more, I like skills more, and you can sometimes do both as well. But yeah, that's definitely my thing. Yeah, I do run a calisthenics class outside at the moment, because I used to run it at rigs, but I'm doing it outside. Obviously, sometimes you have to see about the weather, because I can appreciate that. But I do that at Bertie Corner in Kings Heath on Mondays at the moment. But I'm maybe looking for a venue inside when it gets a bit colder as we go on.
Oh, brilliant! That's good stuff. So in terms of like getting this, getting it out there, what was you mentioned? Obviously, you've taken that role on now, not just being a trainer, but almost like an events organizer. So talk to me more about the business side of things. Like, what was it like trying to run an event, looking after like the athletes, organizing the venue? What was that experience like? Because you said that was your first time doing it. You learned a lot. You made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
What was that experience like for you?
Yeah, like I said, I'm always, obviously from the accountant side, obviously I've got to always keep an eye on budget and all that stuff. But it's very easy to sort of, you obviously want to make it a perfect event, but it's obviously very easy to get carried away with just these little things that you just tot up with the costs and stuff like that. And originally I'd actually planned it in rigs where I was working at the time, and I was going to get quite a good rate. But then when I was trying to, unfortunately, the pull-up bars and the dips weren't to the standard I wanted them at, because it was meant to be the nationals, and I wanted to like decent dip bars, where not the ones that you can attach to like a pull-up thing, because you're a bit limited there, and especially with the level of guys that were coming. So then I had to make those changes, and I had to go, right, okay, I've got to find a new venue. And then I found the one like that at Moseley Rugby Club, and then that's just suddenly when you go from a small budget to a big budget. Well, not big, but as in the small cost to a big cost, and that started to blow up. And then obviously the rig itself, transporting it, he had to come from London in the van, obviously building it all up. And then suddenly you said, oh, I'm just going to do it because the owner at rigs at the time was like, yeah, I can do it, it's fine, don't worry about it. And then it suddenly it gets a lot harder straight away. And then it's just all making sure health and safety is huge part, and it's not insurance, getting everything that done, making sure waivers are signed, and all these things that you might not consider, and you say, oh, I'll just do this, and then you go, oh, there's that, and then making sure there's prizes. Obviously then you've got the whole sponsors thing, which I was very grateful that I did get a sponsor for the prizes, but that's also quite tricky. So yeah, there's a lot of things to consider, and now obviously I've got to know a base, and the more, again, just like anything, the more contacts you have, the better it is. So that's why I've managed to set up 4 regionals from that event, from speaking to people within the community. And they've now given me some of the venues so these venues a little bit cheaper than the ones that I had. So now I'm trying to run smaller events, quicker events, because the one that you came to, obviously it was a long day as well. We had 30 people. If you're doing 30 athletes, if you're doing 3 attempts, 4 lifts, that's 12 per person. And then that day, we started up around 12, finished at 8 p.m. So that's a long day, and you've got volunteers, and then you forget that they need to switch out. So yeah, we could go on and on, but basically there's just things that you don't think you need to consider. And that's what experience is. When you do it, you go, oh, I need you to consider that. I need to do that. So now with these smaller ones, I have tried. So talk about 3 attempts. I'm doing 2 attempts this time. For the nationals, I probably will keep it to 3 because it's a big event, but I'm now doing 2 attempts for this one to shorten the time. I'm doing 20 athletes also, a maximum. And so, some of the venues might not get there because obviously we're building up the sport at the moment, but minimum we're going to have 10 of each, which is ideal. And then it's just about building that, and then going through there, and just again the marketing side, which was also very tricky.
Brilliant stuff, mate. Good stuff. So what's the future for the strength calisthenics side of things, or what's your future? Where do you see it going, and what's do you see yourself just maybe potentially just running those events? Are you still going to be doing the coaching side of things? Like, where do you see yourself in the future? Let's say 5 years from now.
Yeah, I would, yeah, I think with the calisthenics thing, this is how I can sort of see this sort of, decide nationals, regionals. I don't think, obviously, you can have more and more regionals the more popular it gets to more different locations. But there's actually, I'm in contact with the guy who did the first world championship as the sport grows as well, because it's just trying to get more people in now. So then it's basically a feeder for that. So I will definitely focus on the UK. Obviously, I'm talking to the guy at the world's guy, but I'm definitely not going to basically. It's going to be a UK based thing. That's my vision for that. And then with the personal training, yeah, I'm the moment just keep going along with that, and just seeing different things, seeing where I can develop in different spaces. I definitely have thought about maybe changing locations sometimes, just to I've been in Birmingham now for a good I forget now 4 years, and just thinking about whether it's in the UK, maybe going abroad, just to see how that is for a bit of a change. Whether that's in 5 years, I'm not sure at the moment, but it's something that I want to maybe explore, just to have a bit of a change of experience. But obviously, like we mentioned earlier, it's very difficult as a personal trainer to completely, you can't go there and come back. You've got to be that, you got to set that base and then go through those years. So obviously, if you build up, maybe I build up my online presence a bit more, so then you have that flexibility as well.
So there's one question I do want to ask for you. I've tried, well, I say I've tried, but in the past tried to do a muscle up, but it just doesn't happen for me. So how can I work on my own muscle ups? Because I find them fascinating, honestly. Maybe I've tried it, like just jumping off a box, and managed to, try to get above the bar and press. But for someone like myself, got a bit of experience training over the years, got a decent amount of strength, but it's just, I think I struggle with the technique. So how can I get my first proper full form muscle up?
Yeah, so there's two things, whether obviously you've got the ring muscle up and the bar muscle up. So the ring muscle up, I'd say, is slightly easier one to learn. So sometimes people can benefit from learning that one just to get the technique. They are slightly different techniques, but for the ring muscle up, it's all about the false grip. So you want to be basically gripping the ring like on your wrist bone, rather than when people grip, like you grip the bar here, whereas you want to grip the rings there and pull it round, and so you feel like you're in this position. And then it's getting the transition in technique of just pulling through the chest. And sometimes people like, it's like ripping your shirt up, say Superman. And then it's about practicing those pull-ups and those dips in those positions. So basically, if you can comfortably do, normally everyone's a little bit different, but if you can do 6 to 8 clean form pull-ups, and then 10 plus dips, or similar things, then you should have the strength for it. So that's always the thing. If there's no point, you can practice transition, but you need to know, if you don't have the strength for it, then it's not right for it now. So you obviously making sure that we've got those down, and then for the bar, and then for bar and both ones, obviously it's just using bands can quite get us used to the motor function. They're not perfect, because just like with everything, bands take away that resistance at the bottom and not all the way through, but it can just get you over that hump. And you take a really big band to start, just to get yourself over the bar, and then obviously gradually, as you improve and as you're getting stronger or getting used to the movement through there, is also bracing the core, squeezing everything nice and tight. And the first few muscle ups that you'll do are always going to be a bit ugly. The one thing obviously with the band, that you can't really tuck your knees, whereas when you first do it, you probably want to use the momentum of your legs. But it is not the easiest to explain, like I recall. So unfortunately, that's why it's difficult.
I appreciate it. That's good.
But definitely, you definitely will have the strength for it. It would just be the technique of the transition. Like you said, the rings, false grip, a lot of chalk will help there as well. Making sure you got the grip through there. But that would be my recommendation.
Brilliant stuff, man. And we'll just wrap up. I mean, I remember coming to that event and seeing some seriously strong dudes out there. Honestly, it's different to what I've seen in the gyms that I've been to in the past. So, I can say with full proof that if you do pursue this sort of sport, you're definitely going to be strong, and not just strong, but like these guys were ripped as well. Like,
Yeah.
I guess like having a lot of body fat's not going to help in this sort of sport either, is it?
No, because you can't get over the bar. Yeah, I think that's an element. I mean, I think it's a bit outdated that powerlifters are all like, you know, the thing when people say they're all like really big, bulky people. Obviously, when you get to the higher categories, sure, but obviously with the calisthenics, you can't have any. Well, you can, but if you have more excess weight, the harder it is to pull yourself up quicker. So that's why you have to be lean as well as strong at the same time if you want to be the best through there. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff, man. Were you at the Arnold's just recently, just the other week?
No, I was actually away for this one because that was the Arnold's was the year before I competed, but I missed this one. I've also transitioned myself actually, ironically, in a bit more powerlifting recently these days. So that's what I've been going for.
Nice stuff. So Toby, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm at Body Mastery _ and then the competition Instagram is Body Strong UK _.
Brilliant
so if
stuff.
you type those two in, then you can find me there.
On Instagram, yeah?
Yeah, on Instagram, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, so people would go check out Toby and see what he's doing. He's doing a whole lot of good stuff, bringing up the scene of fitness. And like I went to the Arnold's just recently, just the other week, and I did see all the calisthenics. I actually recognized some of the guys from the event. They were all busy like training, and yeah, it was really good to see, man. Really good to see.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your time coming onto the podcast. Won't keep you any longer.
Thanks a lot for having me.
No worries. Thanks for joining, and you take care, Toby.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.
See you later, mate. Cheers. Bye-bye.